All right, test, test, test. Make sure my mic's working. Yes, it is. Okay, so we are now going to move on to page 46. Sorry, page 45. Histograms. Here, so I can see. Okay, so histograms are very similar to bar graphs. They are very similar. There's a couple of key differences, though. So one is they are similar to bar graphs. All right, like I said, I am trying out a bunch of different programs here just to get an idea about how they all work. Ooh, sure. They're very similar to bar graphs, but they touch. And they also measure a different kind of data, as we'll get into. So with a histogram here, these measure something we call continuous data. Now, bar graphs look at discrete data. So the bars are, in fact, touching. One thing to note is that the width of each bar represents a range of numbers, and we will make sense of this in a second. So they're very similar to bar graphs, but they are different. One of them is, again, you know that they are touching. That's why I really emphasize on that. The other thing, when I talk about a range of numbers, look at this example here. This is the number of airplane arrivals to a Calgary airport. Like if I go to, let's say 11 a.m. here. 11 a.m. is this point. 10 a.m. is this point. Anywhere from 10 to 11 is in there. So it does not matter if that flight came in at 10:01 a.m. or 10:59 a.m. or 10:30 a.m. They all represent in here everywhere. They're not put into the time they come necessarily. They're put in with a range, right? A continuous data. Any flight between 10 and 11 comes in here. I can see there were 6 flights that landed between 10 and 11. That's how we read that here. Now, one thing I also want to highlight on this graph is look at this part here. Starts at 0 and it ends up at 6 in the morning. This is saying from, hey, midnight to 6 a.m., there were 2 flights here. So it breaks our scaling a little bit, right? So we can do that. That's fine in this case because all we're doing, again, is showing a representation of continuous data. So, how do we read this? So how many airplanes are scheduled to arrive between 2 p.m. and 3 p.m.? Well, I would go to my 2 p.m., which those of you who don't know, that's 14 military time, and 3 p.m. is 15 military time. Well, I'm looking at, here's 14, here's 15. I'm looking at how many flights arrived in here. I can see it is 4 of them. What was the busiest times at the airport? And so one question, what are the busiest times? And 2, how many planes were supposed to arrive at those times? Well, I just got to go to the highest part, right? And I can see I got a 10 here, I got a 10 here, and I got a 10 here. So the busiest times would be between 11 to 12 a.m. And you could put the actual military times here if you want. I'm just going to stick to normal time just to give us an idea here. So 1500, which is 3 p.m. to 4 p.m., which is 1600, and then 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. And then what is the quietest time? Well, there's a bunch of them, right? I can see here, let's use a different color. I can see here that, well, 2 is the lowest number, and that happens 4 times. So the quietest times, pen, were from, I will put 0. I'll convert the other one here just to give you an example of both. So between midnight to 6 a.m., from 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. Sorry, from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. Those are just I can group that. Sure, I wouldn't care if you put 7 to 8 and 8 to 9 or just 7 to 9. It's the same thing in this case. Or 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. Now, are there any airplanes that are scheduled to arrive between 4 and 5 a.m.? Well, 4 and 5 a.m. isn't technically on here per se. So you're really looking at this. That's talking about this section here. This is so between 0 to 6, there was 2 planes that landed. But we don't know for sure what time they came. They could have came at 12:01 a.m. They could have come at 5:59 a.m. We don't know. So the answer here is maybe. The data does not give enough information. Okay, so question 2 here. So Arabella works as a server at a super busy restaurant. She has kept track of all the money she received in tips per table. Draw a histogram to represent the tips she received. And then, so one question, draw a histogram. Two, what is more obvious from the histogram than in the table below? So we're going to draw a histogram. Now, for you guys, you might have the page. I might not. So we're going to do it how we normally do. In this case, I'm going to trust that you guys remember how to draw a graph, right? You just draw your grid. Perfect. And okay, so now I need to, just like before, I need to start with labeling my X and my Y. Sorry, I didn't mean to do that. Here, that's not what I want to do. I want to do that. Here's my X. Here's my Y. Now, which of these, the category is going to go somewhere and the number is going to go somewhere. Usually in a histogram, we would make the number, the quantity, our Y, just like how we did up here, right? Number planes, categories. And here are my categories. The amounts are my categories. So let's start out with the Y here. The highest I need to go is 23. Why don't we go up by, so let's say this one, why don't we go up by 5? Let's go up to 25. So we're going to say up here that this one's 25, which would make halfway here about 12 and a half. So let's go a bit below that, put 10, a bit above that, put 15, a bit above that, put 20. Again, you're just doing your best to visualize the space here. Oop, and 5. Mine was a little, actually, it's a little bit higher. I'm going to do that. Again, doesn't have to be perfect. Cool. So I've done my X values. That's the number of tables. I'm going to write that in. Number of tables. And then down here is the amount in dollars. Okay. So now I need to go in here and I need to put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 categories. Now, ideally, you want to try and get it where like they're spaced out the same. This is kind of an exception here, but usually you're going to have them where the exact same. So I'm going to say, so I need to do 6. I'm going to say here's 1 category, here's 2 categories, here's 3 categories, 4 categories, 5 categories, 6 categories. Okay, and then I'm just going to label those in here. So this is the less than symbol, right? Less than $2. Let's make this text a bit smaller. Over here, then, is going to be from $2 to $3.99. Look at how it's being specific. If you put $4 here and then you put $4 in the next category, you're going to cause problems. You need to be specific. $5.59. Next category is $6 and $7.99. Next category here is $8 and $9.99. And then we just put over $10. Now, one thing you're noticing here is I've put it in the middle of our zones, whereas over here, there's really clear indicators as to here's the 8, here's the 7. You can do this with time. You can set designated points. With money, it's fine to do this. You could do it the same way as well, where it's like 1, 2, 3, 4. You could do it that way too. Totally fine. Okay, so can I draw a rectangle? Yes, I can. So now I just plot my points, right? At this point, we should be pretty good. So I know that I had 12 people who tipped less than $2. Can I fill this in? Is that a thing I can do? I think so. I don't think I can. Oh, yes, I can. Here's about 12. Okay, perfect. So next is I had 6 between $2 and $3. Now, in a histogram, we can touch these bars. In a bar graph, we could not. Then I had 23 from $4 to $6. So I just go up to 23, which is about right here. Just a little bit. So next I go from 6 to 799. There was 5 of those guys. And then from 8 to 999, I had 4 of them, so a little bit lower. Again, it's not exact, right? You're doing this freehand. And then 2 from 10 to here. Okay. So now we've done a histogram here. I also need to label it, right? This is the amount of money in tips received. Perfect. Okay. So, but I'm not done. Remember, there was 2 questions. This is why you want to make sure you always know that, oh, this is asking me 1 question. This is asking me 2 questions. Right? 2. Oh, that's not what I want to do. I don't want you to fill it. 2 and 1. Sorry about that. So what is more obvious from the histogram than in the table below? Look at it. What do you learn a lot more of from visually seeing this data versus seeing it in a chart? Most people tip a moderate amount, or most people tip between $4 to $6, right? And that's it. That's genuinely it. So now what you guys can do here is you can work on all practice questions. Um, and you can work on any textbook questions, and then work on any assigned questions. Sorry, all practice and review questions. So we'll then work on the assigned questions that are in the LMS there.